Here's what I am confident in, John, is that Raheem Mostert is not going to hold the 49ers over a barrel. Our guy, as we like to call him, Mozart, who had just a glorious year this last year, John. One of the greatest rushing seasons out of a special teamer that the NFL's ever seen.
How many career starts did you tell me he's had? Running back?
Based on my research, he's had 0. If you count the one game he didn't start, it's 0. If you count all of last season, it's 0. And if you count his rookie year, it's 0. It's basically, not basically, it's 0. If I add it up, it's 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 5 years of 0, 0 starts.
Do you think if we'd looked up players in NFL history that are 28 years old that have 0, let me repeat, 0 career starts at running back, have ever got 2 contract extensions or pay bumps in back-to-back seasons? Because when I first saw this, what I just saw, we were on the golf course, we were told he wants a trade. I was just kind of thinking out loud. I'm like, well, one, he's a running back too. But I
ignored it. I didn't realize it was going to become a story.
I also had kind of forgotten that he had got like the little $9 million extension last year. And then like as the day went on, I Googled some stuff. I'm like, yeah, it hit me. This guy got a contract extension last year as a special teamer. And he, like you said, never started a game, just covers kicks, played a little bit. Early on in this season, like probably when the Niners were 5-6-0, you and I couldn't even say his name right. Couldn't say his fucking name right. I understand. It's not easy in the NFL. Guaranteed money's hard to come by. You got a contract extension after a year. I would say one thing, right? I would say there'd be more validity to this if he just had, the Niners had their exact same season, and when you pulled up his stats, started, let's say, 14 of the games, started every playoff game, ran for 1,700 in the regular season, 150, 150, 150 in the, like, just, it's like, that was Bosa, Sherman Mostert, you know? Guy, he did not start a game. He did not start the Super Bowl after he ran for whatever in the NFC Championship game. Why? Because he's not the starter. In the playoff game before that, Tevin Coleman, remember, had scored a couple touchdowns, ran for over 100 yards, who was the starter. Early in the season, I'd say it felt like the first 6 or 7 games, Breda was kind of the star of the offense, right? Beside like Kittle, of just busting off huge runs. They had a stretch back-to-back games where Jeff Wilson Jr., because Coleman was hurt, was their goal line running back and scored, I think, 4 touchdowns.
Jeff Wilson Jr. was the poster child for fantasy football last year. If I was playing 1 week, it would have been fine. Alyssa had a team. I dropped the guy from the Eagles so I could get Jeff Wilson Jr., and the guy from the Eagles scored 3 or 4, maybe 4. What was his name? He scored 4 touchdowns, I think, on Monday Night Football. Sunday or Monday.
LeGarrette Blount?
No.
Miles Sanders? No. Yeah, I kind of remember that, but I kind of don't.
Anyway.
The contract extension, I don't know what. Their best player on the team, guy, is contract extension less, i.e. George Kittle, who needs a contract extension. There's a priority list in life, and I'd say that Raheem Mostert, after he just got a contract extension, which when you've never started a game and you're a special teams guy, you and I were talking before we hit record, like that had to be a moment when he signed that deal last year. Probably one of the proudest moments in his life. You could say at the time, the highlight of his professional life.
Well, I mean,
he'd been cut by 6 teams.
Yep.
You get $9 million when there had to be moments when he kept getting cut. Like, I'm going to be, what did I study in college? Like, what else do I have to do? Like, you got $9 million, change his family. I think sometimes we do this. You only could change families' lives when you get like $80 million. Like, last time I checked, like $500,000, majority of humans would run to that. Like, $9 million for Mozart when he signed that contract, making over $2 million a year, almost 3, had to be a big fucking deal. And when I looked at his stats, honestly, I expected more. He ran for under 800 yards. As you said, he doesn't catch the ball. I think he's pretty properly paid.
Well, even I think the problem, right, is he had the exact same number of carries as Tevin Coleman, 137, was far more productive as a rusher comparatively, and is making $2 million less, basically. Right? Like, hey, you signed me as a special teamer. You didn't sign me. It'd be one thing if you signed me, like, your primary role is backup running back, and then it became clear, like, I'm the best running back. But it's not what happened. You signed me as a special teamer. I just think he has no leverage here. I don't understand how he can ask for a trade or ask for a raise. But I do understand in his mind, like, I'm a special teamer. That's what you gave me that money for. And now I am significantly more valuable to you than I was when you signed that contract.
That part is, I understand. I completely agree with you. Him sitting down going, I'm better than Coleman. And I would completely let's say if I'm him, I'm a better running back. We figured that out. Whether that's true or not, maybe you're the same guy. And I contribute on, like, he ain't covering kicks. I'm kicking people's ass. Right? You don't see many. It's pretty rare for, like, a cover guy to get an extension, right? Most cover guy, I've seen it. It's like, well, let's just bring the practice squad guy up. He'll cover. You don't pay cover guys much money unless they're Slater, and that's just because Belichick. If you had to say, like, Belichick, you could, at 7 years old, write a thesis on something. It would be like covering kicks. That'd be like what he'd want to talk about. He loves that portion of the game probably more than any human in the history of football. And clearly, I think Kyle, say one thing about the 49ers operation, I think they valued that. But that's just not really how football works. Like, there are a lot of guys. How many guys are on teams? Because you could play this game a lot. Like Olivier Vernon, remember, was it the Browns gave him huge, or the Giants gave him huge money? And there just had to be, there's a lot of guys like that in the NFL, right? When you hit free agency, you just get overpaid. Like, let's even say, like, Amari, relatively properly paid. There's a lot of Olivier Vernons that are just, he never really produced, but then he got astronomical money because he was the only pass rusher on. There had to be guys on that guy's team every year going, wait, I make $3 million, he makes 15, and I've just watched the tape the last month, and I'm a better player, or we played all season long, I'm a better player. Like, that does happen. I think we could find several instances if we, like, went deep dives on every team, on every position group.
I mean, it happens it happens in every office, in many offices. Everyone's contract isn't public information.
But the difference, though, is they signed him to a contract when by no means they had to, one. And two, the value in which they assessed to him, I don't think is something that he would have been as valuable at the time. Like, was anyone else giving him that contract if he was just available? I would say no chance. Especially, all you got to do is go to his Wikipedia and see his history. I actually think I tip my hat to his story.
He had one carry before he became a 49er. Now, to your point, he didn't. But still, I mean, he was playing in games. He just wasn't playing that position.
He did. Do you have his stats up from 18?
Yeah.
The year Jimmy got hurt. I remember him making some plays. Probably, if I had to guess, 450 yards.
He had 261. He only had 34 carries, but he was 8 yards per carry. But, this is.
You would say then, okay, how many career carries? Did he have a lot of carries before 18 in the NFL?
He had 8 career carries before that.
And then he had what, 34?
And 7 of them were as a Niner. Then he had 34. Then he had 137.
So when the 49ers gave him a contract extension, he had 41 career carries for the Niners, and they guaranteed him basically $4 million.
Yeah.
I think the Niners would say, we extended ourselves to you. Like, that contract doesn't typically get handed out, right?
I think there's 2 things working against him, major things working against him. One, Kyle, he just plays a position that you're just not going to leverage Kyle Shanahan, right? You're a running back, man. Whatever. I
think we go back to, like, the late 90s, right? Just the history of
Mike
the family.
Shanahan's not buying it either. Nothing illustrates Kyle Shanahan's ability to use running backs interchangeably as well as Raheem Mostert. He is the poster child for this. And last year, him and Tevin Coleman not only had the identical number of carries, 137, they also had the identical number of receiving yards, 180, even though Mostert had fewer. So he was actually more efficient as a receiver. But that's the first thing. The second thing is he is not asking for money from a team that has a lot of space to give him money. So now he wants a trade. Why? You're an incredibly valuable what? A trade? You telling me is Raheem Mostert prepared to hold out, John, and not get the millions that he does have? He does have a nice contract. It's not nothing. It's not what he would want. But how much more money would he get week 3 when he gets traded to another team? How much money is he getting?
I'd have to do a deep dive again. I can't remember a player in the history of the NFL since I've been covering it or around it of Raheem Mostert's level that's even contemplated holding out. That's when I think holdouts, right? I think Revis. I think Mozart, they'd laugh. Now, here's the one pushback. I'd have to do some diving in, text some people with the Niners. Typically, when a player like that signs a contract, they give you some outrageous incentives, right? Like if you lead the league in rushing, you get $1 million bonus. Now, I wonder if there's any team incentives, because I would say one thing that you could do if you're Prague. Now, we'd have to, like, if we talk to him, maybe he'd say, well, historically, we've never done this. It's bad precedent to, like, if you lead the team in rushing, we'll give you an extra $500,000 or something. Now, there is a big part of precedent with doing contracts, because all players then would come at you when they just he didn't have some historic season. He ran for 770 yards, right?
But he led the league in yards per carry, John.
Yeah, and that's my pushback if I'm Lynch or Prague is like part of that is your limited carries. Like there's a reason that it's harder for a guy like this rushing for 1,500 yards to lead the league in carries. He's carrying the ball 30 times a game. It's a situation that I think we kind of feel for NFL players in general. This is one I have a little sympathy when I think he's pretty properly paid.
So, John, he was second, obviously, overall, but first amount of running backs because Lamar Jackson averaged 7 yards a carry. He was 5'6". Matt Breida was sixth in the NFL in yards per carry. He got traded.
That wouldn't work well against Raheem's argument, correct?
It would not work well. No.
You'd be like, well, he had a 90-yard run start Monday Night Football. You siphon that one out and give me the numbers. That run was sweet.
Yeah.
But remember, part of that run was Juszczyk or Breida said after the game, Kyle told us this was going to hit. Remember, it was like fake to the right kind of, and he cut right back, and it was just Moses part of the seas. And that's part of the argument of, well, if Kyle had Joe Schmo or Billy Bob or whoever guy on a practice squad, that run is there to be had, right? That run is Kyle-based. One thing I will defend Mostert on, he clearly last year became a really solid NFL player, right? He was just making runs where you just went, yeah, this guy's good. I'd want this guy on my team. And the Niners would be like, yeah, he's on our team, and we have him under contract for 2 more years.
Right, based on the fact that we did a good deal. That's part of our job.
Here's what remember Prague told us, and I do believe him when he says this, at least a large portion of it, is part of doing a deal. You always want the other side to feel good too.
Right.
Like if I'm always doing deals as a team, and I think this speaks for definitely football and probably baseball, where basketball for the most part, like the money's kind of set once you're a certain level of player, right? The numbers are all football. There's a lot of variance. There's a huge negotiating tack. I think they felt probably better given Mostert's camp when they signed that deal than the Niners. That was, I wouldn't say huge risk for the Niners, but it's like, we don't have to do this. We're showing you good faith. Now, you could argue maybe they knew they had something. They get them really cheap.
Yeah.
But what would they really know based on 41 career carries for him, right? That's a pretty small sample size. I don't care who you are. Or do you think that's enough given Kyle's scheme and what they know?
I wouldn't be shocked if Kyle thought there's something more here, or if they as an offensive staff thought there's something more here.
Or if they also just valued, we got a top 2 or 3 special teams player in the league. If Slater's making $3 million, we like this guy. He fits our culture. I feel comfortable giving this guy a little bump and him being all in.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do, just cover. Would you want to cover kicks?
No. Most guys don't.
No. That's why they all tap out once they become good players.